We're going to take a look at the tools of the trade here. These are tools you can purchase at any local hardware store. The first set of tools I'm going to show you here, we'll start out with these Allen wrenches. We got a metric set here and an American Standard set. These are used for various things, and the reason you need both metric and American Standard is because nobody has made a standard yet. We have both on all. Some guitars have metric and standard on one guitar. Anyhow, you'll need them for things like, say we have this Allen wrench here. You'll use it to adjust the saddles on this guitar right here. So, next thing we want to take a look at, your basic pliers, no different than any others. You may already have a set that'll work. Some wire strippers. These will be used when we do electronics. Just a basic small set will work just fine for the kind of wiring we're going to do. A little wire clipper, just a small one. These are really handy. We're going to be doing wiring. We're going to be putting strings on guitars, and when you put a set of strings on, there's always some excess. These are great to cut that string off. A set of needle nose pliers. These are handy for mostly wiring electronics, but occasionally you'll have some other needs. String might get stuck here in the bridge, and you need to use these to get that string out of there. Next, we're going to take a look at the screwdrivers. Basically, just your medium Phillips screwdriver. This is nothing unusual. You may already have this. A medium slotted screwdriver. Once again, you may have these already in your set. A small Phillips screwdriver. This is going to be, like let's just take these screws on this pick guard here. You're going to need to use a small Phillips screwdriver for that. A large one or a medium screwdriver won't work. And then a small slotted screwdriver as well. There's some different types of pickups and things that you'll need to use a small slotted on. And then you'll also, it's not totally necessary, but I find it's really handy to have a set of these miniature screwdrivers. They come in handy. Can't tell you exactly where yet, but I'm just sure you'll need them. This Teflon tape, later on in the DVD, I'll show you some tricks I came up using Teflon tape. So just get it. It's cheap, and you should have it in your set. An X-Acto knife. Once again, when we're doing wiring, it's really handy to have the X-Acto knife in your set. You'll be splicing the wires with that. We have 3-in-1 oil. Occasionally, some people have an acid in their sweat and they rust out these little metal pieces on their bridges. If you just keep a little bit of oil on them, that'll help to keep that from happening. WD-40, this is handy for a lot of things. One will be on the truss rod up here. Sometimes they get jammed, and if you just take a little bit, it's got this nice attachment here. You can squirt a little bit of WD-40 in there, and that will loosen that up for you. Elmer's glue. It's always good to have a little Elmer's glue. There's some parts come apart. Elmer's glue is nice because whatever you glue with the Elmer's glue, you'll also be able to take it apart. I've got a real beef with some of the manufacturers out there these days. Are using super glue to put things together, and most of the time, parts on guitars that there's going to be a point somewhere along the way where we're going to need to take it apart, and I would prefer that they would use that. Also, now we need we're going to need to get a 6-inch rule, a precision 6-inch rule. And for this, you'll be using this a lot in the setup work that I'm going to be showing you. You'll be taking and measuring right here from the fret to the string, and it's important that you have a precision rule like this, something that you can read the numbers on fairly easy. And a dowel rod. I know it might not seem like you need a dowel rod, but you do. There's a couple of things we're going to be doing here. One, when we're doing the shielding, I like you to have a dowel rod so you don't cut your fingers. But just on a day-to-day basis, when you're putting new strings on, they always need to be stretched out to really get them to stay in tune. And this works great if you take a dowel rod and just really run it along here and just really stretch that string out. A lot of strings actually have imperfections in them, and a dowel rod helps get rid of that. A small hammer. At some point, we're going to need to use a small hammer. There will be a point or two on the guitar here where we're going to want to use that. You'll also need an assortment of sandpaper. You'll need some 80 grit, 120 grit, 220, and 600, or something close to that. We'll be using these for assorted things in projects along the way here. And that pretty much covers your basic tools that you can get at the hardware store. This next group of tools can be found online at Luthier's Mercantile International, All Parts, or your local guitar store. This guitar setup mat is something that I really think you should get. It's worth the cost. It supports your guitar nicely. You have a neck rest here to put your guitar on. It's got a soft backing so you don't hurt the back of your guitar at all. It's well worth getting. Next we have some capos. You just need one of these. I like the Shub capo. It's a little more expensive, but you can just use a real inexpensive capo here. This works just as well. So either one of these will do the job. It's not to change the pitch of the guitar. We're going to be using this for something else, but it's definitely going to be needed. Next thing we want to have in your set is a set of these nut files. This is a few more than you actually need. You'll figure out exactly which ones you need depending on what kind of guitar you have. We'll have one for each string actually. It'll be fairly close to the gauge of your string, and this allows you to do a really nice job when you go to adjust that nut. I've seen a lot of people try to use jeweler files to adjust a nut, and that just doesn't do the job. You really need a precision file like this. You'll take it and just it fits right into the slot. This particular one would be a 16, would fit right in there, and it'll file that slot just the tightness that the string should be, so you don't have a lot of slop in there, and that's really important. The next thing you're going to need to do is have a really good tuner of one sort or another. This Korg DT7 is really nice. It does the job. A little more money, but a little nicer strobe tuner is the Peterson VS2, or any of the Peterson tuners are really nice. So the next thing you're going to want to have in your set is an 18-inch straight edge. This is real important. You may have a straight edge already that's a precision straight edge, 18 inches, that'll work, but it's fairly rare to find. Most of them are 12, and a 12-inch straight edge is not going to do the job. So we take a straight edge and we use that to check your neck out, because we actually really want to have the neck very straight. And the only way to really tell that is to have a straight edge, so you can take a look right here and you'll be able to see if there's any if there's a gap there or not. So definitely get one of these. The next thing that I like to have in my grouping is a tuning fork. This isn't a necessity, but I like to have it because I do use my ear still, and it works great. Gets me to that A right away, so I don't have to spend time looking at a tuner and plugging in and all that. I can just, whether I'm using an electric guitar, acoustic guitar, I take this and hit it there, or I put it right up next to my ear. It works really well. This is a handy little tool for those of you that want to keep using your ear. Another thing that I suggest is you get this little neck rest. It folds up real nicely. You'll use this for a number of things. You may have a situation where you don't have your mat, you're at a job or at a gig or something, you want to make an adjustment. This is a handy thing to have. Or when you're using your mat here, when you're adjusting the truss rod, or you might be adjusting the nut here, this sets real nicely. It supports the guitar here for you so that you can put a little pressure here. And I suggest getting one. They're not very expensive, and they fold up real nicely and fit inside your case. So add this to your list. You're going to want a truss rod adjusting tool. You don't need all of these. These are, we have the one for a Martin guitar here. We have a various array of truss rod adjustment tools here. The particular one for your guitar is all you actually need. And what happens here is these are made so that when you go to adjust the truss rod, it fits in. There's not a lot of room up here. So this fits right in there just right. It'll be the specific size of your truss rod nut, and then you can make the adjustment on it. So you'll definitely need one of these. This is a really important tool, especially in some of the things we're going to be showing you. This copper tape, once again, this is something that you're going to need when we show some wiring and some shielding. It's important that you get this. That's part of what you'll need in your set. This string winder is really handy because when you're tuning a guitar, you're putting a set of strings on. This makes it a lot easier. It just goes on right up here, and you can very quickly get a set of strings on. The other thing with a string winder that a lot of people don't know about is it's got a little place here for pulling the bridge pins out. So you can fit that right on there, and just be careful. Use two hands. I don't want you to pop that thing real hard and drive this right into the top of your guitar and crack it. So let's, use it. Make sure the strings are loose when you go to use it, and it just fits in there real nicely. And just very carefully, just pry the string up, and that little pin will come out of there. And handy little thing to have. So these are generally the tools that you'll need here that you can find at your local guitar store or online. This next group of tools can be found online or at your local Radio Shack. We'll start out with this 30-watt soldering iron and the little stand that it comes with. I think you may have to purchase this separately, but a small 30-watt soldering iron like this will do the job. I sometimes like to use a soldering gun, but it's not necessary. You can actually do the job with this 30-watt soldering iron. And the stand is handy because this is very hot, and it holds it nicely. It's got the little sponge here that you can keep the tip nice and clean, kind of an important factor in soldering irons. So this will be a nice thing to have in your set, and you'll need it for any wiring. The 6040 rosin core solder, important thing to have. You'll find this at the store as well, and just the smaller, thinner solder seems to work really well. Some 22 gauge stranded copper wire. I have a couple of colors here. I have red and green. They come in assorted colors. It's nice to have the different colors because when you're wiring something, maybe you have all your grounds one color, all your hot wires another color. So I suggest getting at least a few different colors there. Just make it a little simpler for you. And then you'll need a little bit of shielded wiring as well. For some of the things we like to do, you're going to run the wire a distance, and you may want to have a shielded wire for that. So let's have a little piece of that as well. And like I said, these are things you can find online or at Radio Shack.